Hello, and welcome to the PhD Life Raft podcast. I'm Emma Brzezinski, and today I am talking to the gorgeous Isabeau Iqbal. We're talking about perfectionism, what it looks like, how to work with it, and how important it is to know your own strengths. So I do hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, Isabeu.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining me, the woman who just talked to you and asked you to come on. I was fascinated with your work and the way that you talk about you work with ambitious perfectionists, and I was like, okay, I know a place where there are lots of ambitious perfectionists.
Yep.
And I just I'm sure this is going to resonate with so many people. And I was like, could you come and talk to us about this? And graciously, you have said yes. So thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
So we're going to get into perfectionism in a minute. But first of all, I'm just going to ask you to share a little bit about your own story with us.
You bet. So this is the story of how I ended up doing a PhD. And I want to preface it by saying that I'm an only child of two parents who were professors. So that, I think, is an important fact to add here. So I finished high school, and I just assumed that I would get a PhD. I thought that's what everybody
right. That's amazing.
Right, because that was just my origin story with my parents. I did 1 year of university, and oh my gosh, I had the shock of my life. So I left. And then I came back a few years later. I finished my undergraduate degree in science, and I was miserable. It was about a 4 to 5 year process. And for me, there was no joy of learning. I was so anxious the whole time. It was like just one big endurance stint around performance, right? All I cared about was getting an A, getting top marks. And so obviously there wasn't a lot of joy in that. And I wrapped that up, and my undergraduate degree got me prepared to become a dietitian. So I worked as a dietitian for a number of years, but not many number of years. I think within a few years, I left that profession because it didn't feel like a good fit at all. And sort of fast forward, there was 7 years between my undergraduate degree and going back to grad school. And I really attribute that to the fact that my initial experience of post-secondary was just so terrible that it took me 7 years to build up the courage and desire to go and do graduate studies. The happy twist here is that my graduate studies showed me this whole other way of learning. I did a master's in adult education. I was encouraged to pursue what I was interested in. There were no more, exams. It was all papers and a thesis. I got to do research, which I really enjoyed. It was qualitative research. And it just completely, when we talk about transformative learning experiences, that's what it was for me. So that was amazing. And I completed my master's in a fairly short period of time. And then just by chance, I had a girlfriend who who couldn't take on a contract that she had been offered, and it was at our university's teaching and learning center. And so that was, I think, a 3 to 4 month contract or so, which I said, sure. I mean, I'm looking for work. I would like to take on this contract, and just loved the field. So it's the field of enhancing teaching and learning in post-secondary, and you can understand why I probably cared about that a lot at that point. And it's one of these kind of chance events where friend can't take on contract. I get introduced to a field which I now have been in for 19 years. And well, the coaching came more recently, but just into the PhD then. So a few years into my work as an educational developer, the field that I'm in, I started to realize that if I was going to stay in higher ed, a PhD would serve me really well. It would allow me to be at certain tables that a master's wouldn't allow me to. It would allow me to have more credibility, to have just be involved in the field in ways that I felt a master's just wouldn't allow. So that's where that's where that interest and motivation to do the PhD came. It was that very practical, very pragmatic, and so that was the start of the PhD, which is a whole story into itself also.
I'm still with what you said right at the beginning about this sense of being on your undergraduate degree and you were looking for that kind of love of learning, but spent the whole time being worried about wanting to do well. And thinking about how that is a very common story for PhD researchers, that actually this is an opportunity that you can really go into it because you love learning.
Yes.
But actually then find that you spend most of your time being really anxious about performance.
Yeah. And I would say my PhD was really a combination. So I had been introduced in the master's to the love of learning being possible in post-secondary. And so I knew what I was seeking, and it was really a combination of the learning and the pursuit of learning and being able to dig into, a really specialized area and read. And I mean, I love ideas, as well as anxiety, stress around succeeding, performing, completing, all those things. And I mean, I was very fortunate to have a great committee, but I also had 2 young children, my partner, part-time work. So it's never a simple thing, is it?
No, it isn't. It isn't. And I think especially, and this is me trying to bridge us into this conversation, because what I love also about your work on perfectionism is it's embodied experience, right? Yes, you know what this really feels like from the inside. So tell us about that. Tell us about perfectionism and how you see that now.
How I see it reflecting back, or how it shows up in the coaching I do? Well, let's say, because this is really meant to be helpful for graduate students, for people who are pursuing PhDs, I'd like to take it there. And there's a few things that stand out for me in terms of the work I do currently with academics, with these ambitious perfectionists in higher education, that overlap also with my own experience of having been a doctoral student. And so one of them is around this, analysis paralysis, or otherwise, that feeling of being stuck and feeling like Either there's too many decisions, or you're afraid of making the wrong decision, or you, quote unquote, don't know what to do. And I think because of the person I am, and I didn't get stuck in that. Meaning, I didn't overthink the topic. I really listened to the guidance of my committee in that respect. I knew that there were so many topics potentially that I could, explore and dig into. That's one, small example, but I see this all the time with the people that I work with. It's getting stuck in overthinking and in not making decisions, and what I call spinning, right? Just revisiting decisions over and over. That's one piece.
And I think that sense of stuckness, I'm sure lots of people can relate to that. And it's such a painful place to be, actually, because what we want to do, we know psychologically the most healthy place to be is to be in motion with options. That's what you want. That's how you thrive. And often people's experience is opposite to that.
I was just going to say, I was going to say, because when I really like that combination of in motion with options, like that is so well put. And what I think happens, like the options are always there. It's that we get into this belief that either there's only, two options, or perhaps possibly even only one option, when that is absolutely not true.
Yeah. And so this sense of, and I also want to pick up on what you said there, because again, it's really, it comes up so many times when I'm working with people in terms of this indecision and not wanting to commit to something as well. So it's because it's really interesting, isn't it, that it's both. It's kind of feeling stuck and feeling like you can't move. There's too many options. There's no options, but there's also too many options.
And there's a perception. I think what goes along with that, sorry to interrupt, what goes along with this is this belief that you're going to make the wrong choice.
Yeah.
Right. I think this is often what keeps people in that stuck place.
So how do you work with that then? How do you work with, if you recognize, well, first of all, you might want to say a bit more about what perfectionism looks like.
Sure.
If people are trying to work out if this might be them. And then how do you work with that? If you go, this is what's the challenge for me at the moment.
Right. Yeah. And it's so interesting to me, the number of people who initially will say, no, I don't think I'm a perfectionist, and then actually realize that, actually, maybe I am. These characteristics. So some of the characteristics, first of all, is the one around having exceedingly high personal standards. So of course we want to have high standards. I mean, this is something that most people would say is commendable and something to work towards. But the perfectionism takes it to a place which is almost impossible to, or possibly actually is impossible to reach. So that exceedingly high standards. The other characteristic is about being very self-critical. And a third is difficulty tolerating uncertainty, right? So come along with that is the need to control, because you're so uncomfortable around uncertainty. Having excessive self-doubt, and then the piece around indecision, which we were talking about a few minutes ago. So highly self-critical, the high standards, the difficulty tolerating uncertainty, the self-doubt, and indecision.
And so And that's a heady cocktail, right?
Isn't it?
But I think also
know.
the thing about it as well, though, is that there's lots of good qualities in that too. And, you know, it's great, like you
Exactly.
say, it's great to have high standards for yourself, and it's great to be reflective, because,
Yeah.
and that, you know, that makes a good academic. So then,
Yes.
how to work with that so that you kind of
Yeah.
keep those good things going, but you don't get yourself into that stuck place of fear
Yeah.
and second guessing.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. There are really many good aspects of this, and that's why one of the narratives that I don't endorse, I guess, is this notion around overcoming perfectionism, because I feel like that paints it as you're defective, right? So now you have one more thing to beat yourself up about, right? So not only am I all these other things, but oh my gosh, I'm a perfectionist and that's terrible and that. And so I really like the fact that you highlighted you're highly responsible. You know, your intentions are really to do well, like so many different pieces. But in terms of when it is not serving you, which is really, you know, part of perfectionism, is so the strategies that I suggest. There's a few. One thing that really helped me is to connect with my purpose. This is something that when I'm working with perfectionists, or as I was doing my PhD, was to think and remind myself about what is it I'm here for? Why does this even matter to me? Why am I doing this? Right? So to get grounded in that and connect with your purpose. And your purpose doesn't have to be something, you know, lofty. You don't have to be out to, you know, change the world or make a groundbreaking discovery. It might simply be something around either career aspirations or something very, you know, practical, such as, you know, this is something I wanted to do. It's a personal goal of mine. It's personal to you. So connecting with your purpose. Another piece is to clarify and live into your values. So again, a personal example for me, my values around family are very, very central to my choices. And so when I was doing my PhD, I had two young children. I was also married, and it was important to me that I felt good about myself as a mother, and I also didn't want my relationship to, you know, to end up in a divorce. And so there were choices that I made along the way about things I would say yes and no to in order to be able to feel good about myself as a mother, and also just be able to maintain a relationship. So connecting with your purpose, living into your values. The other one is around being selective about what you choose to control. I mentioned earlier that perfectionists tend to really feel uncomfortable around uncertainty. And so how that shows up often is a desire to control everything. And that's simply not possible. But, you know, something can magnify in the amount of time it takes if you're trying to control absolutely everything. So the effort, the time, the energy. And so being selective about what it is that you want, that you're going to control or choose to control. And then two more strategies that I usually that I work with is around loving your decisions, right? So let's say you have decided to go a certain route with your research, and love that decision as opposed to constantly second guessing yourself, thinking maybe you should have picked another framework or interviewed another subpopulation. No, no, whatever you find is going to be useful, and work with that, as opposed to, I'm not going to say wasting your time, but kind of wasting your time, continuously revisiting things. And then the final strategy, but not final in terms of order, is know your strengths. And this is something, it's something so near and dear to my heart. I am trained as a Clifton Strengths coach. Clifton Strengths was previously known as Strengths Finder.
Love it. I love that so much.
The number of people who don't know, and it doesn't matter whether it's a formal assessment like this, like the Clifton Strengths, or another one. And there are many different assessments to know your strengths, because we get beaten down in higher ed, and it's not a culture where we're really encouraged to know and use our strengths. And it's all about being critical, and unfortunately that often translates to, I don't know my strengths, and do I even have any strengths? And you're like completely losing touch with them.
Yes. Oh, I'd love you to say a bit more about that, because it's awesome in terms of, exactly as you say, because academia sadly can be incredibly disempowering, incredibly infantilizing as well, actually. And people start to go, am I actually any good at anything? Exactly. I don't know if I am. And that is, that's what, so wrong.
I agree.
So tell us a bit about Strengths Finder, because not Strengths Finder now, it's called remind me what it's called now. I knew it as Strengths Finder. Yeah, you're wrong.
Sure. So Clifton Strengths is one of many tools. I like it, and I chose to get certified there because of the research. And of course, as someone with an academic background, you won't be surprised that I wanted a tool that I felt was really had a lot of research behind it. And so I don't want to, come across as an advertisement for them, but I do really like it. And there's a few ways. If anyone were interested in looking into it, it is paid. They do have a version where it's called the Top 5, which I think is a very affordable price point. But basically what it does is you answer 177 questions. It produces 2 different reports. And one report is fairly generic in terms of describing your, what they call themes. They call it themes because it doesn't always show up as a strength. But these are your ways of being in the world. Like, this is just, no matter where you are, what kind of situation, this is how you show up. The second report is completely individualized to you. They take all your responses to the 177 questions in the order you did it and produce an individualized report. And, most reports, we tend to just file in a folder, digital folder, and we never look at these again. But when I got this one, it gave me insights into myself, which I had just were new and were so helpful in explaining and helping me with my self-awareness. So explaining some of the things, some of the preferences I have, and also for my self-awareness. And I would say it really influenced some of the decisions I have made career-wise, and some of the choices that I have made about things I want to pursue and things I don't want to pursue. And so it has had a huge impact on me. I would definitely encourage anyone with curiosity to do this or something similar.
Yes. I mean, we don't want to get too hung up with this as a particular thing, but these kinds of processes can be so validating in terms of these are, like, I love the way you put it in terms of the way of being in the world. Everybody has that, and everybody has coping mechanisms, and everybody has preferences, and to kind of really remind yourself that these are there and they are your strengths. These are the things that you can do, and your orientation, and to just really ground yourself back in that and validate that for yourself. Can be such a profound experience, actually.
Yes, and ground yourself, and then use it to help you when you are feeling stuck, or you need to make a decision, or you're feeling pulled towards something. You're having a debate between your heart and your head. Like there's so many applications for this.
Love it. There's so much more that I want to ask you about.
I know.
But I am aware of time. And so I'm gonna ask you the unfair question in terms of something that people can take away, because I am sure, perfectionism, so many people in academia are perfectionists. It attracts that kind of person, attention to detail, all of those kinds of things. It's all good stuff. But if people are struggling at the moment with that, and with all that we've spoken about earlier in terms of feeling stuck or highly self-critical and all of that, do you have any top tips or thoughts for them that they can work with?
Yeah, I would highly suggest to be crystal clear on your priorities, and then to use these as your North Star, right? Your guide, because there's so many things that can pull us in many directions, including our perfectionism, other people's opinions, what we think we should and shouldn't be doing during grad school. And your priorities, once you have identified them, can be just so helpful as you go through what is often a very difficult, challenging. I mean, yes, there's lots of great things to doing a PhD, but it's typically not smooth sailing. So having those priorities and holding them there for yourself, and honoring them, right? It's not, it's one thing to say what they are, but to honor them, I would say that is my suggestion for today.
Oh, that's so gorgeous. And I think it is, because it is, isn't it? So rather than externally referencing, which is what perfectionism is a lot, isn't it? What's expected of me? What should I deliver? To just take that and internally reference what's important to you.
Yeah.
Well, that is a beautiful place to close. And just thank you so much, Isabeu. Thank you for kind of highlighting this and making it a thing that we kind of recognise that this is what's going on, and we call it out, and then we understand how we're going to work with it. I think it's really gorgeous. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
And thank you all for listening.